didn't put my flag up in my office, I guess. So,
Give me just a second to get it on YouTube, and then I'll give you the green light.
okay, thanks. Didn't put my flag up in my office.
Give me just a second to get it on YouTube, and then I'll give you the green light.
We don't have Jim.
All right, you're ready to go.
We don't have Jim Fox back for the minutes yet either.
He's here.
Perfect timing there. So, okay. So glad everybody could make it. Everybody feeling well? No COVID sicknesses. All right, Clark's good. Good. So, all right. See, we've got a little outbreak in the pro shop, but got a note a little while ago saying that. So going around. So we have a quorum here, so we'll go on and call our meeting to order. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes from December 14th. Has everybody had a chance to read those, or does anybody have any comments for Jim Fox on those?
I'll make a motion we approve.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Second from Steve Wunderlich. Okay, any other discussions or comments? All in favor, raise your hand so I can count hands. Okay, I think that's everybody. Good. Motion passes. Thank you.
Rick, a moment of order. Last week I spoke with three or four of the executive committee members and floated the concept and the idea of possibly going to a scribe, a staff scribe member that would actually take the notes at the meeting. The secretary would certainly come alongside, approve them, review them, all the above, still in that role. But the point was that in this case, we have Jim Fox, who's got his head down, taking, beautiful notes, but really doesn't have that opportunity to engage during the meeting. And I think that leaves us short. Jim in particular has great capacity. I consistently see him doing great things. I've done this in other communities. And unless there is a chapter and verse that I haven't seen that the attorney could show us where it has to be a board member scribing, which I don't believe that's to be accurate, this would be something I'd recommend at our next board meeting. We would invite the staff member who is on this one now, and she's new to the team, and that was kind of conceptually what I wanted to go towards, because it's a task, and the current secretary and then the future secretary would continue to approve them and sign off on them and get them back to you in a timely fashion. But I think it would take some of the pounding that poor Jim has gone through this year with all the various meetings. But this isn't about Jim. This is about making the board of directors even more efficient.
Right. And I did speak with Jim about that earlier this week, and I think he was all for that. Do you want to start today, or you want to wait till next meeting?
Next month. I don't want to make Jamie's first month overwhelming, because that's a big task. So I'm going to bring her into the process here in the next 28 days, because our next meeting will be on the 15th of February.
Right. Okay, good.
All right.
So, and I should have welcomed Jamie, and as well Michael Fife. Michael's our new compliance officer. So welcome to both of y'all.
Thank you, Rick.
Thanks for joining us today. Okay, so Jim, I guess you got it today. Sorry. All right, let's jump right into our financial update from Clark. Treasurer's report.
Good afternoon. Got a lot of data to go over with y'all today. Start with the treasurer's report. And understand that as we go through this treasurer's report, myself and Brian and Crystal, as this is the last month of our 6-month fiscal period, and we're starting a whole new fiscal / calendar year in January here. We spent, as you can probably see, looking at these numbers, we spent an inordinate amount of time over the last few days looking at these numbers really, really hard, and trying to figure out if it really is a weird year, a good year, or are we missing the boat somewhere on the budget side? And we've come with a lot of stuff, but at the same time, let me tell you from a Treasury summary bottom line for December, given that this is the last month of the period, the fiscal period, I looked really a whole lot closer at the year-to-date numbers than I did the month. But the month actually was positive 33,300 on revenue of 401 and expense of 378. The expense of 378 was budgeted to be 439. So it's $71,000 to the good on the expense side of the month of December. When you add that to what we had last month of a 195, you went all the way up to 269, a year-to-date positive net revenue. And that is produced from a year-to-date positive revenue of 140,000 for 6 months and an expense positive under budget of 130,000, which gets you to the 269.
Those were pretty incredible numbers for 6
Those are
months.
incredible numbers for a 6-month period, and that's what brought us all of the concern. And that's the reason we have put in the time over the last 3 or 4 days to try to reason through, especially this stuff on a department by department basis. And if any of you pay attention to the Treasury report of December 2020, you'll see the year-to-date in the far right column, department by department, on how this is built out and how these numbers came about. From a revenue standpoint, if you look at this, on December, miscellaneous income was $24,000, $23,746. And that was, we had a constitution of a lot for 15. And we received our dividend checks from Pentex, the electric co-op, for $6,700. But if you look at year-to-date, miscellaneous income was $57,200. And that's a lot of stuff that feeds that. That is all of the M's on the revenue side of 3 or 4 pages in there that you see on the other income side. Also, the newsletter ads were $4,120 good for December. And if you look at year to date, newsletter ads were $20,500 better for a 6-month period. The only downside of this deal was the food and beverage sales. Now, December showed us to be tough on the revenue side of food and beverage sales to the tune of $23,200. But keep that number in mind when we look at the expense side of this situation. But if you look at year to date, food and beverage was really only about $12,000 off for the 6-month period on the revenue side, year to date. And if you continue to look year to date, green fees were $20,500 greater. And building permits we've already talked about, and newsletter ads we've already talked about. So when you take the food and beverage of about 11 to 12, 20,000 and 20,500 in green fees, 28,700 in building permits, 20,500 in newsletter ads, and 57,000 in miscellaneous income, that's where your $140,000 to the good over a 6-month period is coming from. We're going to talk a little bit more about this as we go along, but let's get through this report. Major expense contributors. So from a positive standpoint, since we didn't have the revenues in the month, we also didn't have the expense of those inventory items got spent. So that was 19,000 better than budget when you put in both food service and lodge management. Change in food inventory, salaries and benefits, uniforms and linens. Parks and Lake, 18,004 for the month of December, but Parks and Lake year to date was pretty much break even after when you put this 18,000 back. If you'll remember, was it last month I talked about the salaries in Parks and Lake? That when we offset those with Public Works, we get to break even. And when you add this 18 back to that expense, that's where you get to almost in Parks and Lake a break even. Roads and bridges. December was a big weather month for the roads. We didn't get to do the crack sealing and so therefore the materials and equipment repair. So all of that got pushed in December. And so December turned out to be a $15,000 positive item. But if you look at roads and bridges for the year, it's only about a $13,000 item. Security for the month. Security for the month was 12,700 to the good. Most of that was salaries and benefits. Salaries and benefits also contributed to security year to date at $30,150. Golf course, $10,000 to the good for the month, $18,000 to the good for year to date. Water, big deal was water there. Water and fertilizer. They did not get to apply the fertilizers that they would like to. Public Works, $5,500 for the month. But if you look at Public Works year to date, $22,400. Most of that is headcount. And you can see most of that if you look at the detail on the following pages in your report. Sanitation and recycle was $4,000 negative to budget because of a rate increase that occurred, I believe, Crystal, and correct me if I'm wrong, in November? Or was it December? And that was...
It was in December that the rate changed.
December. And so what that really did is brought that whole year to date down to about the same amount, $3,700. Federal income taxes. If you'll recall, we had to pay some federal income taxes based upon the audit of our June 30 and our tax return. Our quarterly payments for tax return are going up above what they were budgeted because we made more money last year than we projected to make. And so you're going to see this, and you're going to see this for this month. And if you look at administration is 11,500 year to date over budget because of taxes and travel and reload. That's what's contributing to those numbers. So if on the expense side, year to date, going down the list there that you see, administration over 11, you got Public Works at 22 plus, you got Lake and Parks at 2,500, roads and bridges at 12.9, golf course at 18.8, You got negative on the golf professional, which is understandable because of green fees are up. We've got central garage at 8,000 above, and that is salaries as well. You got sanitation, which is a little more above, but we've got security at 30,000 above, and that also is headcount. So that's all and then food and service is 46,000 above for the 6-month period. That's all contributing to 130,000 above, below budget from the expense side, below budget on the expense side. And so that all is contributing to to give you that 269 number. We're going to talk a little bit more about that 269 here in a little bit and clarify that a little bit more for you.
Okay, Clark, can I interrupt and ask Brian a question? Do we like on roads and fertilizer for the golf course and some other maintenance things that were deferred in December, do we anticipate a big slug being spent in January?
Particularly on the golf course, yes. There'll be some purchasing of the chemicals that will probably be housed and applied in February. But if we don't have a hard frost, we'll have those expenses. Now they're not, $90,000. It's about 12 or 14. Roads, if the weather is good and he has a couple days above 45, they'll get after some of those sealed cracks. But again, not big numbers. Nothing to be alarmed about.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, what we did, Rick, is we've been over the last few days trying to normalize those numbers for you. And we kind of did that. And so what I'm going to show you in a minute is what really we think the excess for that period really should be. It's not 269. The Arf Balance is at 1,687,000 with the I believe we had some heavy expenditures in this. No, budget was supposed to expenditure, but it didn't happen. So we added 57,089 to that. CARF is 482 after a contribution of 35.5. Lake Management Fund is 109 with a contribution of 18.2. Delinquent accounts, we have 30 days, 32 for 10,000, 60 days, 8 for 6,400. 90 days, there's 13 accounts for 21,000. That's 34,322, which is an increase of 2,300 over November. But if you recall, November was down a little bit. We are typically in the upper 20,000 range with this. I think there's one or two fairly large accounts that are contributing big dollars to this number. Is that correct, Crystal?
Yes, we have one account that is in foreclosure, and because of the COVID, dealing with the court proceedings and all that, so that's got held up. But if we was to take out just that one account, which is close to $9,400, and it's of course over 90 days.
Okay. Indian Creek Volunteer Fire Department opt-in. We have 187 total members to date. On the list here on the agenda is an update on Bullock, Bennett and Associates. Leanne, you can take down that treasurer summary now. Bullock, Bennett and Associates, if you'll recall, is the engineering firm that has been doing the dam spillway work for us. And we had thought that when we received the latest billing that they were over budget. When we dig deeper into this, we find out that in actuality that they had been doing some other jobs for us other than the dam spillway, which we had them doing, and they bid that at $108,000. Those other jobs, they had commingled those in the invoice. And we are going through there and pulling those back out to get back to where we think we should be on the dam spillway versus other jobs. And we're going to have a meeting on that this probably this week. And we'll figure that out further. We have one ARF asset replacement item we need to discuss. And that would be the ice machine over at the lodge. Just so you know that we have that on the ARF schedule and it has been deferred for, I believe, a couple of years. Is that right, Chris? It's a 10-year aged item that has been deferred 2 years. That ice machine is actually 12 years old.
That's correct, Clark.
Correct. And we had it as it cost $6,500 back 12 years ago to replace that item. And so therefore, this agenda item was placed here to discuss that particular item because the new item is going to cost $7,500, which is $1,000 more than is in ARF. When in actuality, you look at ARF, one of the things that didn't happen with regard to ARF was the addition to that asset item of its inflation factor, or COLA, if you will. And so there is an additional $300 in COLA earnings to that item. And so the amount really is only about $700 in additional expenditure with regard to that ice machine, and they want to replace that ice machine fairly quickly. And I believe y'all have given me the power within $1,000 to direct that asset to get done and replaced. Is that not correct? For the bylaw.
Yeah, I think that's correct. Is the cost adjustments, is that only 2 years or does that go back to the original 12 years ago?
That's a 2-year adjustment. One of the problems I found is that the COLA for that asset was insufficient. And so we're going to repair that as well. What happened is when they put in the inflation factor, they put it in at, and I'm talking, and whoever did it, put it in at 0.34%. They put a percentage sign on it rather than a decimal 0.34.
So instead of 3.34, it was 1/10 of that.
Correct. So that hurt us.
So
And so that will be, all of that will be repaired.
Okay, did you check other ones as well? Is it?
Yeah, I'm looking at all of it. We're looking at all of it.
Okay.
It's across the board that way.
Okay.
Jim,
that answered my question.
it was across the board. We're going to fix it. Jim Fox, if you will remember, you and I looked at that about 3 or 4 months ago, and we agreed about that. And that's about the time that I talked to Susan and Brent Reed on Ways and Means and said, hey guys, we got to fix that. And both of them agreed and nothing happened. Okay, so that's the report to you about that item. I want to go back a little bit, if you will, in the treasury summary. There was a report of the cash. Did we get to that, Leanne? I don't remember. It was the last page of the treasury summary.
Yeah, you had me pull it down. It was up, but I pulled it down.
Okay, it's the last page of that treasury summary.
You want me to put it back up?
Please.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm a little disorganized. We've worked pretty hard on some of this stuff here. There we go. The treasury summary, our cash balances. As everybody look, we see we've got our reserve funds, which is our contingency and our contingency and security deposits at $2,560,000. But we've got a checking account at First State Bank that's got $536,000 in it. That and looking at that number, that number has not been below probably 350,000 for as long as I can think back. What I would like to do, what I think we should do is probably take about 150 of that and make a 30-day rolling CD out of it and get some investment power out of that cash balance. And so I'm gonna do that with Brian, just so y'all know. We're not going to call it reserve funds or anything. We're going to roll a CD based on our cash balance. I see people shaking their head. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Leanne. Next on the agenda is investment committee discussion. I brought that to your attention last month. We did talk to our auditor about that. And there's also a discussion that I think that Rick and Sam have had with regard to that. Everybody seemed somewhat positive with that last month. I think I'll just turn that discussion over to Rick. And if Sam wants to add anything to that.
Yeah, well, I guess the concept here is that maybe we earn a little more on what we are than just the minuscule amounts we make on CDs or even money market funds right now. And you would have a committee recommending that, Clark, people with banking experience, investment experience, is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, I think that's the right way to go. Absolutely. I think we have some very talented individuals that understand that. I think what you're doing is getting a group of people together that understand what's going on, and we actually select a money manager that would be one of the big houses rather than some individual. So we make sure we have a fiduciary. We make sure that there's bonding and et cetera.
And to Clark's point, they would draft a charter in which you as a board would affirm before any transaction, any transfer of funds would happen. In other words, it would have a level of acceptable risk, insured, FDIC, all the parameters of that are beyond my deal. That the board would say, okay, this will be our strategy. And then the committee and the fiduciary would be let go to town and see what they can get, what's in the marketplace, and provide us options. And then this would come back to the board. Your committee's not going to pull the trigger on it, but they're going to make sound recommendations. There's just a lot of instruments out there that are geared for 501c3s that have cash reserves, such as ours. It's in the actually billions of dollars in the U.S. marketplace. So trust me, there are a number of people have figured this out, like, oh, there's some low-lying fruit, just keep it conservative as hell, and let's put something together. So this was something Clark and I have been talking about for 2 months now. And as you see, we're fortunate to have the cash, but let's be responsible. And I'm sure they will.
And Brian, from your past experience at several other organizations, have some of the other entities you've worked for done something like that?
Absolutely. And even in one of the charters, they maintained a percentage of reserves that must be in cash at all times to make people feel good. Because as soon as you say investment committee, you will get a ripple effect from a percentage of the residents that will think, oh my God, they're jumping in the equity market. And that's not the case. Just let's tap the brakes here, guys and gals, and let's just be smart about it and get people that are very savvy about this subject matter to work with us. Yeah, they'll get some money for it. There'll be a commission. Yeah, that's what we want. They want them to, provide said services. So, but of course, the board will have the control of it. You're going to get the charter. It's probably going to take a couple of meetings back and forth, and there'll be some debate and cocktail hour talk about it. But then multiple multiple companies will be interviewed once the charter is established. You guys control the charter, and then you make your committee do the legwork, and then they come back to you with, all right, we're recommending, and I'm just grabbing this, Fidelity, and he has option A, B, and C. You select B, transfers. It's going to take all sorts of signatures. It'll be well documented in the following year's audit. Legal will look over our shoulders on it as well. It's a process that's it's slow, but it's probably slow for the right reasons. So you don't have saying, well, Clark doesn't have to sign this sign over there. It's only the community manager or not the president. You want to make sure it's very, very deliberate, and legal signed off on it, and as well as the board. And any one of you can stand up in a room and say, yeah, this is what we're doing in the best interest of the community.
Okay, so I like the idea. I don't have any other names to help you out right off the top of my head, Clark. I don't know if you know other people and kind of in this industry that could, but other board members may as well. So I would say at this point, let's start getting our heads together. Other board members, do you know people from the investment or banking communities that can assist Clark? I just don't personally. Someone who lives out here, I guess. So that sound all right?
Yeah, we'll take it from here, and I'm open to anybody's suggestion whatsoever.
So other board members, why don't you just, if you do have suggestions for people that would be great for that, just send an email to Clark and copy Brian and myself on that, would you?
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is review and take action on accepting the audit. They did make the adjustment that I spoke of last month on the audit, and got rid of the $10,000 bad debt allocation. And that did not change our cash number from 56,093 because it was on the same side of the ledger. Both those adjustments were on the same side of the ledger and of the cash flow statement. And so it did not change that. It just increased an amount by 10,000 of one and decreased an amount by 10,000 on the other on both the same side of the ledger. And so in a moment, we'll probably go through and as a matter of fact, here coming up real quick, I'm going to talk about our excess cash flow funds. I have that agenda item accepting the audit. We probably need to take action on that, Rick. I would move that we accept the draft of the audit that we have, and they have corrected the pages that had the $10,000 bad debt allowance in it to delete that. And so we do not have to establish a bad debt allowance.
Okay, so we have a motion from Clark. Do you have a second on that motion? Okay, Sam has seconded the motion. So I guess discussion wise, I've read through it, felt comfortable with it all. We were still waiting on a letter to be signed, I believe by Les. Is that correct? That we need to still get that letter?
Yeah.
Crystal?
It was my understanding that Les had already submitted his documentation to them. I asked for a copy, but I haven't gotten a response back from the CPA or the audit team providing me that information. But they did say that Les had provided them documentation.
My point is I think we just need to look that over real quick.
Okay. Well, I'll send them a follow-up to make sure that we get it.
Okay, as soon as we get that, I'm good with signing it. So, okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the audit? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of signing the audit agreement, say aye or raise your hand. I guess I can't see Jerry. Maybe Jerry, did you raise your hand? We're going to assume so.
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you, Jerry.
You bet.
Okay, Motion passes unanimously there. So approved.
Okay, next item. It's not on the agenda, but I think it's while going through all that we've been through, we've come up with it. We came through all this. I think it's important for y'all to know, again, we've talked about this probably the last 3 board meetings. Know what excess cash funds we have available to us from prior periods. I'm going to say again that at 6/30/2019, we had approximately $200,000 excess cash number. 95,000 of that at that time was allocated to the pavilion. That made that number 104,362. 104,362. Since then, if you'll recall, about 2 or 3 months ago, we decided to use 9,000 of that 104,362 to purchase microphones. That has occurred. That balance at June 30, 2019 is now 95,362. Now I will go on and give you some other numbers, but here's where I think we're coming up on an issue with regard to this $95,000. The issue is, as a not-for-profit, we do not have to pay taxes on this money. We have already paid taxes on communique ads, some of the food sold in the lodge to non-members, the real estate sales, net of basis and expenses, and all of those things. We do not have to pay taxes on this number unless that number is outstanding for a long period of time. If we don't do something with this number, and our auditors are coming back in to do our 12/31 audit, we need to get this number spent or get it allocated in some fashion so we don't have to pay taxes on this number. Does that make sense?
And how long is that long time? Is it just up to the auditor?
Okay, well, our audit that gave us that number didn't get completed until probably September. So, and I think, I'm not exactly sure. My memory doesn't go back that far, and I didn't deal with a lot of not-for-profits, but it's somewhere between 18 and 24 months, okay? So we need to get this money spent or allocated and designated. 95,362. The next number we need to keep in our mind is our number that we just audited the last number audited for 6/30/2020. 6/30/2020, a full 12-month fiscal year. That number is a number I just told you about a little bit ago with the audit we're going to sign that we just approved is 56,093. 56,093. The next number I'm going to give you is the number that we've been working on pretty hard for the last week or so.
Okay. Hey, Clark, let me back up to the 2019 number. When you said the audited number came about in September, you're saying September 2020?
No, that would have been 2019.
Okay, September 2019.
So and the reason I said that is because you've got 18 months to 24 months to deal with it.
Got it. So yeah,
That's the reason I gave you that date.
getting real close to that.
And we're getting real close. I'm worried about that. Okay?
Got it.
That's all I'm telling you, is we
Right.
need to do something with that number. We're getting close. We need to deal with it.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that one point.
Right. So the next number I want to give you is the number we've been working on pretty hard for the last week or so. And that would be the numbers we just talked about at 12/31/20. And what we saw on there was, for a 6-month budget, a really strange $269,000 number. So we worked with the department, some of the department heads, and we've worked and worked and worked on that. And we went line item by line item. Every department, we looked at every department's items. We looked at every department's excess cash flow. We also looked at their budgets. And we went department by department. You know, I think that some parts of November were definitely December were weather related, and certain expenses didn't occur, and those expenses are going to occur. And there's some budget items in 2021 that look very similar to that, but some of those things just didn't get done in December, and they're going to need to be done. We also looked at the negative against the positives on those, and we looked at department by department to see what we felt truly was an excess cash flow number by department for that 6-month period. And what we could consider to be excess cash flow for that department. And the number we came up with, which is a true excess cash flow number, which may be adjusted in the future, but this is a very conservative number, and is $110,000. So for 12/31/20, $110,000. Now, having said that, I think all of us that worked on this were a little bit disappointed that that number was so large, especially for a 6-month period. And we know that, as we have shown you before, we are not going to bring it out today because it still needs a little work, but we have shown you what some areas that we think we need to focus on to make some budget adjustments for 2021. Those will be coming out. I think we're ending up with golf, a bigger number than we expect, and with Golf Pro being the marshals and the starters with a bigger number than we thought. Those numbers seem to be quite large, and so we're going to look at those more and probably get those committees to do a presentation to you about substantiation for those numbers, because they are much larger than anticipated. So for you, we think that the excess cash flow from a conservative standpoint for 12/31/20 is really about 110, not 269,000. Does anybody want? Yes, sir, Jim.
Is there anything in there that we need to do related to that ARF adjustment that you made earlier, talked about earlier? It seems like if that's off by 3% or 20.
We're gonna make that change to the ARF schedule. It's in the cash flow schedule of ARF.
I know. So therefore, if you go back and adjust everything by 3%, that's going to require ARF to have a lot more money in it.
Well, my concern is that it's not 3%. That, you know, COLA, I don't think has been 3% in probably 5 or 6 years. Like last year, it was 1.8.
Right.
Supposedly, that piece of the cash flow that has the inflation factor is every year at the end of that year, once they tell us what that is, it's supposed to be adjusted. And so you can go back 20 years and see what COLA was year after year after year, and we can make those adjustments in that schedule year by year.
But nonetheless, my point is there is some adjustment that we're going to have to allow for, and
Yeah.
it may have to come out of that cash to beef up ARF to help pay for the things that we were thought we were saving for.
Well, and you're right when we get to, well, but not really. I think we're going to be okay all the way to the year 2032. We need to make some adjustments and see what that differential is.
I understand we have to look at it.
Yeah.
First. I'm just kind of making a warning that we may not have as much as we think we have. The other if you don't mind, one more question. Each year, the members vote when we vote about the excess fund or excess funds that we have to either retain those and apply those into a future year, or they vote to return them to themselves. And I'm pretty sure historically they say apply it to the future years. So the membership's already voted, I believe, for that 104,000. Is that fair to say they've already voted on that one, or did they just vote on 2018?
No, they voted on the 104.
That one, or the 95 now. Okay,
Right.
so they voted to apply that to a budget, and then this year's budget was a deficit budget. But what we're saying is we're not really running a deficit budget.
Probably what we're going to vote, they'll probably vote on the same thing in, it's
March.
February, right?
Yeah, February.
They're gonna probably should vote on the 56.
Right, but my point is that 95 that we have left was already said to allocate that forward to the next budget. So it's accounted for in the next budget, and we had a deficit spending budget, the next budget for 18 months.
I would have to read that question that they're voting on, but it's to future expenses. I'm not so sure it's actually the next budget.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what it says.
I'd have to look at the language, but it may say to the budget or future expenses or something like that. In other words, it's O&M. It's not one of the votes that you have to take is whether or not you want to take that excess cash flow and use it in O&M, or whether or not you want to contribute it to a fund. That's the decision you got to make, because those are the two things that you can do with that money to avoid paying the taxes on it.
Clark?
Yep.
And in addition, Jim and the rest of the board, whatever the amount that Clark and I determined to take out of the general checking account to put into a fund, the board would have the flexibility to allocate that to, if there's an adjustment with the COLA and the ARF, that's where you would take it to fund it, and you would have that as your backstop. Okay?
Well, we're not going to contribute that money out of the checking account to a fund. We're going to leave it as a checking account. We're just going to invest a part of it.
CD, yeah. But
Right. It's still operations money that we're investing. It's not fund money.
Okay, any other questions for Clark there on the status of our surpluses?
I've only got one more thing. Yeah, any questions on those surpluses? Those are the numbers you get to deal with, okay? For the things that we need to spend money on. The only other thing I've got to report to you on, and I'm sorry I'm taking too much time, is the second tranche of the PPP. The first tranche, we have submitted the forgiveness. We have not heard back from them yet, but we should just anytime. We are kind of in the crack. Everybody's that's getting attention borrowed 150,000 or more. If you borrowed 150,000 or less down to about 75,000, which was where we are, those people kind of fell into a little crack there that didn't get their forgiveness done based upon that. There's a new form coming out for them to fill out, and there's a bunch of administrative stuff. So what we have done is we have submitted our forgiveness application for the $80,000 PPP money. We expect to hear back from that shortly, but they have also published some rules around tranche number 2 of the PPP, which is in this latest stimulus package. Tranche number 2 is going to have a different qualification around it. Tranche number 2 is going to be preliminarily, and they'll probably come up with some more rules for the SBA to administer. But tranche number 2 is going to be a difference in your cash flow over a certain period. In other words, if we look at the first quarter of this year, January, February, and March, and our cash flow at the lodge, food and beverage, for instance, must be 25% or greater, less than 2020's quarter or 2019's quarter. You can compare it that far back. But the cash flow has got to be 25% or greater less. And then the formula is that whatever your delta is there, if it's less than 25% of your cash flow, whatever your delta is, times 3 is your loan amount. We've kind of kicked that around a little bit. We don't know yet, but I'm not so sure we're going to make that. So 25% or greater, less cash flow. That's
And Clark, is it our entire entity, or can we segment it down to just the lodge food service?
It's food service at the lodge. We're going to segment. We have to. We did it last time. That's what we did last time. So I'm not sure we're going to get there, but we'll see. Just giving you an update on where we are looking at the new PPP, the second tranche of the PPP, and that's kind of looks like the criteria that they are going for there. Any questions on that?
So let's say we applied thinking we may or may not be 25%, and then we don't make the 25%. Do we just have to turn around and pay it all back, or are there any penalties or consequences?
Yeah, that's great. Maybe we can compare it to the fourth quarter, but I can tell you right now, we're not 25% less on the fourth quarter. It's period by period. You can do it for the year, or you can do it for a quarter, or you can do it, but we're not 25% less than 2020 or 2019 on the fourth quarter of 2020. So if we compare it to the fourth quarter, we're not going to qualify. So our next great opportunity is the first quarter. Right, Crystal?
That would be
All
correct.
right. Any questions for Clark or Crystal on the PPP?
Rick, that's thankfully all I've got.
One more question then. They don't retroactively apply these new rules to the first tranche, do they?
No. We should receive our forgiveness on the first tranche here really shortly.
All right, very good. Thank you, Clark. Okay, so we're looking to be in good shape. We got some money we need to spend just out of our regular O&M budget that didn't happen at the end of the year because of weather. And then we need to think about allocation of those other funds going forward. So Let's see, we've got item number 6 here, nomination committee from Jerry Slater. I don't know if Jerry's on here or not. Are we having anybody report on that right now?
Jerry is not on here.
The bios that are included in your packet were for you to review, and had Jerry been available to ask questions, but I thought Saturday's event went very smoothly. I didn't see it firsthand. I saw it this morning. But the nomination, election process is moving well. The electronic voting is set up, ready to go. Leanne and I had a Zoom with the 6 candidates Friday afternoon, at 6 o'clock, and we walked them through the timeline, what would be involved, certain phone calls that will happen for those that are receive the most votes. I do want to just interject at this time. If there's any way the board can reconsider not posting the actual vote count for the slate of new board members, my experience has been consistently that is a dagger in the heart to some people that you probably wouldn't think it would bother, but it does. And the volunteerism, it just pulls the rug out from under them. And they're generally really strong individuals, and we need to have them serving on other committees, potentially future boards. And just to kick someone when they're down, you've suddenly gone from something that is, oh, I know this guy or gal and I want to vote for him, to now you've made it political. I understand if that's what you've done in the past, you want to keep that cadence, but I'm asking you to give it some real consideration for your fellow neighbors.
That's a good point. I have no idea if there's any requirement for that anywhere in the bylaws or not. I'm assuming there's not, and it's just past practice. I saw Corky shaking his head, so he's our guy that seems to know.
And I'd ask James to possibly weigh in for the board at this point with his experience with other POAs and HOAs.
Yeah, James, okay, there you go.
I think that you have discretion as long as your bylaws or your rules don't require something different. And a lot of this is just personalities. And to some level, it might depend on if there had been issues where it's a trust issue and they wanted to see all the votes. But to me, the ruling thing is it's board discretion unless the bylaws or rules require something different.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, I suppose when we could just, if one of the candidates wanted to see the things and insisted on it, we could show them that and just not.
Yeah, but just putting it out in the communique, something that is a living document, it's going to be out there for a long time. That's just, I think it's bad form. I really do, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, all right, thank you. I did watch the candidate forum and Leanne, that I think it went off perfectly. So thank you for getting that done, such short notice and everything. And so far, this Zoom board meeting has gone off perfectly. So again, I thank you for getting those things organized.
Thank you.
All right. COVID-19, item number 7, COVID-19 committee. A lot of things happening out there. Kathy, can you update us on that?
Yes. I guess it's no surprise. The numbers are still continuing to climb. We've got 2,984 total cases in Cook County. Kiowa is, as of Friday, was at 28, which is still high for us. We've got Dallas County, over 45,000 active cases, over 2,400 fatalities. Tarrant County, almost 53,000 and 1,700 fatalities. Collin County, 5,800 active and 472 fatalities. Denton County, 13,925 active with over 400 fatalities. State of Texas is 1,853,000 and 32,000 fatalities. Currently 384,000 active cases. Any questions on the COVID numbers or activity there?
I would like to mention something, and that is that we're still waiting to hear back. We have not gotten approval to have the event out here yet. For those in the community that are listening and are interested, we're still waiting to get approval to have an event out here for vaccinations.
Leanne, I've got an update on that. So I was just trying to get the COVID cases out of the way. Did want to put it out there again. We need reminders that we've got limitations on all the rooms that we use for meetings, and everybody, including us and the POA, needs to make sure you're staying within those boundaries. And I know we've had additional possible cases, Brian, in the employee rank. Are we going up, or are we kind of leveling out again?
The pro shop is the last department to be impacted, and we're going to have to actually close the shop Tuesday and Wednesday. The T-sheet Brown will put up on the door on both Tuesday and Wednesday. He'll have it printed out. He'll still have his starter, but right now he's waiting for a clearance for Lauren on that. But you know, she was sent home with symptomatic conditions Thursday afternoon. So, so he can cover, but his other people that can cover for him, you know, aren't even available till 1 o'clock on Tuesday and Wednesday. So I told him, I said, in this case, I'll let the board know. It's kind of an FYI. You know, we're not closing the golf course. There's not going to be a retail option for those 2 days.
Okay. The next thing I wanted to talk about was obviously the potential of having a vaccine clinic here in Kiowa. We've been working with Tom Sledge, and we thought we might have gotten vaccine a week before last. We were told, I think Thursday afternoon, that nobody in Cook County was going to have vaccine this week. So the decision's been made that if we do clinics, be it in the Civic Center or in Kiowa, we would do it on a Tuesday or a Thursday. If they have enough vaccine, we do both days in one or the other location. So we're still working through that. We've got ability to have an online form for people to register. We are only going to be able to take 100 at a time, and within 2 hours, you can comfortably have 100 people vaccinated. And they wait there 15 minutes in a chair to be observed, and then they head back home. So thanks to all the volunteers I've had, the American Legion is helping out with traffic and parking, and CERT is helping out on the inside of the building. We'll have volunteers watch the members as they have to sit and wait, and then Tom Sledge's group would be giving the vaccine. So we'll keep you posted. We're not going to get a lot of notice when this happens. So that could impact activity at the lodge. But I think we would all want the ability to have the vaccine in Kiowa, rather than maybe the sewing group come up to the lodge that day or something like that. Most of the clubs, associations have stopped meetings per se. And it would definitely be a daytime activity, not a nighttime. There's a blood drive in Gainesville coming up this Thursday. Since there is no vaccine, they'll have 2 buses doing blood, and then the third one will do antibodies. So if anybody wants to, I think you have to make an appointment, and our CERT group, I don't know who else is volunteering to help manage that, but we'll be in Gainesville Civic Center on Thursday. Any other questions on the vaccine or COVID?
Jim Adams. So
Kathy, could you explain what the qualifications or criteria is for them to, people to get on that list of 100 or that first list or even the second list? Or
Well, we've got a link on the website, and you're going to be looking at Group 1B, and they're typically over 65 years old, and anybody 65 years old at this point can get a vaccine if they can find a place to give it. And then you've got a group that have underlying medical conditions, which makes them even more of a risk. But you merely, all the counties, especially the ones that have health departments, are currently taking registration. Dallas, Denton, Tarrant, Collin, they're all doing it. Grayson and Gainesville is doing it. And you just have to register online. The problem is, Jim, they have been hammered. It takes the website down. If it's a call center bank, they're taking the call center down, and we just can't get enough people registered. We would take the first 100 people when we do get to do it in Kiowa, and they would be our count for that Tuesday or Thursday. So we'll just keep doing that week after week. Best thing is register on as many sites as you can find, and go when you get called. Don't wait on us, because we're kind of like the smallest entity that all these counties are dealing with. So be sure and just go ahead and sign up if you fit 1B. I haven't heard when 1C is going to be allowed to go. Since they're running out of vaccine and the stockpiles have been deplenished, I think it's going to be a while.
I'd like to clarify on that. The list that's on the website is to see what 1B is. It's not the list to sign up for Kiowa. We haven't put the list for Kiowa up yet. It won't go up until we know we have vaccinations coming.
Okay, so one question is who is the registration police? How do we know they're really qualified? Do we make them show a driver's license, or how do we verify that they are truly in the 1B category?
We ask them to check the box. You're either 1A or you're 1B. And you will say, I'm getting my first shot or my second. That is the only validation, Rick, that we're doing. And I don't think Gainesville, Cook County is doing anything else when they sign up there, or are the other cities, counties. So that's how that's working. We will ask to see their driver's license. That way we can validate they are over the age of 65. But other than that, and I've got all of the documents from that drive that we worked last week at Civic Center, and we're going to be doing it identical to the way they did it. Tom Sledge's people obviously have the medical background to do the vaccines, and so that's we'll pretty much mimic everything we saw last Thursday in Gainesville.
All right, great. Any other questions for Kathy?
It's sort of a follow-up to your question, Rick, is in 1B or 1A and B, 1B, there's underlying conditions allows people under 65. So you're going to have some doctor's approval of that? I'm asking the question so people that are listening understand the process.
No, we're not doing any of that. They'll have to be over the age of 65 unless they've got, and typically people who have those underlying conditions, they're getting their own providers to provide the vaccine because they are in that critical area. And we didn't see anybody like that in last Thursday, and they had 100 people over a 3-hour period. The interesting thing is everybody came early, but about the last 20 people. So they got inundated. They weren't prepared in the parking lot, and learned a hard lesson. Give them an appointment. Don't have them all come between 3 and 5, because they'll all come at 3.
All right, thank you, Kathy. Okay, moving on to committee updates. I have not received any new member changes to committees from anybody. Does anybody that's a current committee chair have any changes?
I have one.
Okay, Randy.
We changed MGA presidents. Chris went off and RJ Stroop came on.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, do we have a motion to make that one change to the golf committee? I guess Randy made a motion. You make the motion. Somebody second that. So do we have a second? Jim Adams seconds that. Okay, all in favor of making this one change to the committees, say aye.
Right.
Okay, Jerry, I assume you're okay with that too?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Okay, motion passes unanimously there. Okay, bylaw committee, Corky Cahoon, I see is on there. Update on bylaw changes, review the revised changes. Take it away, Corky.
Okay, I have no idea what, I don't have any bylaw changes. I did send out the ballot and the description to all of the directors, and I didn't get any changes back. The only other thing, unless you want to discuss the background of 703Q, that $400,000, based on the forum and the call that you got this morning, Rick, I don't have anything.
Okay, yeah, so I didn't have any changes. I don't know, did anybody else have, did everything look correct to all the other board of directors? Okay, I did have a question for Scott. When we vote on these, do we vote on the bylaw changes all at once or individually?
Individuals.
Individually, so.
Yeah. So on the when we get to the e-voting, you'll have basically one specific webpage that has all the bylaws and all the bylaw changes. There will be a link for bylaw changes explanations on that page, but each bylaw change will have its own individual vote, and so you'll decide for or against.
All right, good. That was answered my question, really specifically because of the question that's come up about the lake management fund. So my one thought, based on the phone call I got this morning, the couple of candidates who addressed the issue beside yourself, I think there's kind of a misunderstanding about it. And I was thinking if it's not too late to get into the February communique, we might have Corky and Jim Marfus draft just a short article about it to clarify why we believe that it should not require a second vote of the people. I mean, that was kind of the whole board's position, I thought. But we had at least two of the candidates answered a question about that indicated more that even if it goes over if it does go over $400,000, we need to put that out for a vote. So I know ARF, if we spent $400,000 under ARF on something, I don't think we have to get a second vote. And then, of course, the issue is the mobilization cost on dredging approaches probably $100,000. And if we have to do it in small chunks, I'm worried we're wasting money. So, that was just one of my thoughts we could do, is put out some information about it. And Leanne, is it too late for such an article?
I actually have a little bit of room, so yeah, absolutely. Send it my way sometime in the next probably 24 to 36 hours, and I can get it in. After that, it'll be too late.
All right, Jim Marfus, I'll start to draft something up and send it to you, and you can touch it up if that's all right.
Yeah, I can do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Other board of directors, questions or comments on that issue?
Just a question. You're saying you had, because of the discussions in the candidate forum, everybody can have their opinion on what that should be. That we're not doing anything special just because of those opinions, right?
I think it's more because of the election.
Yeah, I think so. I've just jotted down some things here. I'll try to go over them real fast. Back in early June of 2019, one of the members called me and said he thought the POA board shouldn't have the authority to renovate the lodge and spend $1 million plus on the pavilion. And was that allowed in the bylaws? And I said that it was. Or wasn't anything against that in the bylaws, only that they maintain. The following day, he came over to my house with a proposed draft of a petition. And I helped him rewrite that to allow for the exceptions of the things like road, bridge, repair, maintenance, as well as our restricted funds. And at that point, we only had one restricted fund, and that was Arf. And we wrote that in. He agreed to that. And so when Jim Marfus in December, when they got around to writing up the Lake Management Reserve Fund resolution, they used the same wording in Arf, that it was a restricted reserve fund. Restricted meaning that we've covered this. Restricted meaning the board can't redirect that for another project. So what concerns me, if it costs us $100,000 to bring the big equipment in, et cetera, and let's say we build up $800,000 or $900,000 in that fund and have to go out on a vote, and let's say the members vote no, and we can't redirect that money just continues to grow and grow and grow because we can't redirect it. We can't stop it without a vote. We're in a real quagmire if that happens. And if we spend it in chunks of $400,000 or less, then 25% roughly will go just to getting the permit and bringing up the equipment. So that's not the wisest use of the money. But because I was involved with it for the last 30 months, I think I understood quite a bit about it and what Jim Marfus was trying to do when he wrote the LMRF. So those folks that were on the board last year that approved the resolution to create the LMRF set it up so that it could be a restricted fund and would be and would be excluded from that particular sentence. That's
Okay, great. So yeah, if you and Jim would collaborate on that and get with Leanne and however much space she has, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, that's the bylaw committee. Golf committee, Randy Romines, item 1 under their review and approve adding junior championship tournament. Tell us what that is.
All right. Brown came and he was going to have it on the list of tournaments and it got overlooked. We have an MGA champion and a women's champion, and he thought it would be a great idea to have a youth champion, have a junior champion, because we have a lot of young kids out here at Kiowa now. And he came up and found in August when it's hot that he would like to use. He doesn't have a clue how many kids. We're talking about 5 kids or 20 kids, but probably not many more. Using the afternoon tea times and blocking off a Saturday and a Sunday in the afternoon and having a junior championship. So probably not many people playing during that time anyway when it's 120 and the kids will probably enjoy it. So he just wanted me to put it before the board. And if the board said no, they didn't want that, then he could still, because they are only going to be our members, that they could take the kids and he could take them and put individual tea times. That's a lot of work on him and Lauren to go through and see who's what went in here. And he'd just like to be up front and tell everybody, hey, I'd like to have this tournament. I'd like to make it an ongoing thing. So I'd like to make a motion that Brown get his wish and allow the kids to have a tournament in August.
All right, do you have a second? Okay, Steve Wunderlich seconds that. Any questions or comments for Randy? All in favor of adding that tournament, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you, Jerry.
You
Okay.
bet.
Anybody opposed to that? Okay, I think that passed unanimously. Okay, tell us about item number 2, starter and marshal needs.
Well, Clark's already hit on it sometime with the financial stuff when he was talking about. Before we have had a marshal just for a limited number of hours during the week. And now with COVID, we have come up with needing a starter, and it, you know, exactly with what's happened in the pro shop kind of proves it with COVID, because we'll be able to keep the pro shop open this week, or the golf course open with the pro shop closed, by having a starter. How much Brown went through and I'm assuming gave Clark and Brian numbers that weren't on the budget, because when we did the budget, trying to do 18 months, it wasn't on there. It was just a small fraction. So it becomes a problem. How much do you need and how much are you willing to spend to, you know, to keep the golf course running efficiently? Side note, while we're talking about this, while you're going, that's settling in, Brown gave me the numbers. We did 58,800 rounds of golf in 2020 on a very conservative side. That was just the number that he got off the computer. The average round of golf is 23,000 for a golf course. The number 1 played course in Texas is Memorial Park in Houston, because they have the weather year round, and they ran just under 60,000. So we are almost the number 1. Our budget is in the hundreds of thousands. Their budget is 4.6 million.
Wow.
We are doing a great service for the community with the golf course, with how everything is going, with how we've been with the money. Question is, do we need to keep the starter and the marshal with the crowdedness? And that's something that y'all have to decide. Brown was very much in favor, and I would really like to have Brian's opinion on this too, because he has been around this probably as much of all of us put together, as far as seeing what it takes to keep the golf course running efficiently.
Right, I think they provide a service, a valuable service, but I do think Brown needs to get approval from Brian on what that number is.
Oh, that's what I said. That's what Brian needs to have an input on it for sure.
Clark and I have had lengthy discussions about this, and the ability to kind of weigh in with a segmented of hours for it would be one ideal, but predicated on weather as a variable, that makes it difficult. But I don't see the non-need for a marshal or starter at that first tee, at least until the May or June, and not knowing what's going on with the community. But COVID has just changed things so much. It's unfortunately, golf isn't as social, backslapping, how you doing, my foursome thing, as much as it is, I want to get out and still have some camaraderie, enjoy the game, work on my game. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball to see if it'll ever go back to that. But our volume is something that is not insignificant. This is by far the busiest track I've ever been affiliated with. It's not even close. It's just, it just isn't. And with that, you guys all see the wear and tear on our course, and the cart's pounding it away, and glad people are out there and not stuck in their home. But conversely, we're probably going to have to up some applications on the chemical side. There's some programs that Brian wants to initiate, and Randy and I and Brian met last week and kind of walked through what those would be. And I asked him point blank, I said, so my golf course is going to look that much better? And he said, no. He said, this is what we need to maintain it. And that was quite, hit me upside the head, like, oh, so you've been saying you spend X even though your budget is Y, and you've been over the last couple of years. And now with the cost of chemicals and fertilizers, with an inflationary track of around 7 or 8% or higher, I don't quite buy off in the whole extra 40,000 plus on that, but it will be more. And that was one of the things that Crystal and Clark and I really hammered back and forth with each other on this morning. on what's it going to take to get what the golf course needs. And, Clark was, choking on it, but saying, all right, if we give it, and Brian, you got to go out and do it and make this happen, we'll support you. But by God, you got to get, chapter and verse on the why, the chemicals, what's the impact, what have you actually been doing? And then fortunately, this second 6 months, his water bill has been significantly lower. We can't hold him accountable for the water bill really at any time. And if he doesn't put the water on, he could lose his job, is what happens. I mean, just to follow the budget. If we have a 6-8 week dry spell and you people lived here, it happens, and we got to pump it.
So I would suggest, or Jim, jump up, got some ideas.
No, I'm all for, but those are two separate discussions on maintaining the golf course and starter marshal. But both of them, we need some specifics to act on, and it doesn't sound like we have that. So I think we need to wait till next month with a number of budget adjustments that Clark alluded to earlier. But Clark, go ahead.
The problem I got, well, I can give you specific numbers. We've been working them. I mean, and I got the hours and the hourly rate and everything from Brown. We currently have marshals, because we only have marshals only right now in the budget. And currently marshals are at $6,000 for the year. When Brown gave me the numbers, he wanted to increase the marshals hours and add a starter. I'm not quite sure that I understand why we want to add a starter yet. I hadn't figured that one out yet, but I understand the marshal and everything. But when you take the hours and the hourly rate and you total that up for the year, it came out to about $40,000. So you currently have a budget of $6,000 and you're going to go to 40 for the year. That's a $34,000 increase. I wasn't opposed to that. What I am, I'm just asking, where the hell's the money coming from? Okay. I'm still not convinced we need a starter yet. So I think we need the marshal, of course, but I'm still not convinced we need a starter. My concern is also, and it's important that you know that my concern is also that the starter and the marshal are already employed, and we have not allocated any funds, nor have we voted to approve that activity. And so that concerns me a little bit. I'm kind of going to take a wild guess here that the starter came up with regard to the, I don't know whether it's a controversy or not, about tee times and the tee time system. I'm hoping not, because the starter doesn't do anything to help that situation at all. So I'm just laying it out there. It's a $36,000 delta based on the numbers we've been given, and where's that money going to come from? And that's where I came in at.
I'll add one thing. I'm still concerned, like you, I'm concerned where the 34,000 comes from. I think if that's based on a full year, we might ought to look at it in chunks over the coming year, because the reason why they're asking for increased marshals and starters is because COVID, and we took the ability away for people to go into the pro shop and check in, and it became less organized. So they need it. So that was a need, and I think I see that need. But if COVID starts to fade away at halfway through 2021, I pray that it does, then maybe we don't need that, and people can start to go back into the pro shop. I will say that, to your point, you don't understand why the starter is needed. It does help. There is a tee time controversy, and it does help, because if you make sure the right people that tee off are on the tee sheet and get put into the system, then the points get added up properly for each person. And so a starter or somebody making sure that all names that play golf go into Chelsea will equalize the point system.
Go ahead, Clark.
If I may. Okay, so my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm kind of out there a little bit, and talked to some folks who were kind of ramrodding the tee sheet system. The issue is really not about the day of the golf and the tee sheet that's printed off that day given to the starter and he's checking names. You're right that everybody he's checking off their names gets some points for that day. The question really becomes the tee time that was received by the people who made a request. And that request is put into the system 4 or 5 days ahead of time. And if I may be so blunt as to say, what I was informed is that the request is being put in by somebody's wife or somebody's neighbor who doesn't play golf, such that they don't have any points. They get a preferred tee time. And at some point during that 3 or 4 days between the date of the tee sheet being assigned and the date of the 3 or 4 days before they actually play, the members of that tee time get changed. And so the tee sheet is printed out the morning, and all of the stuff that went on to request and get a good tee time has disappeared by the time that tee sheet's printed.
That's not true.
What I understand.
That's not, yeah.
That's not true.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
You get points when you get your request. You get some portion of points. And then even if you come off the tee sheet after that request, you still get those points. So those names that went in on the request originally and they got their time, they get whatever points were assigned to them. Those people that come on the tee sheet after the fact get a full point no matter what time as they come onto the tee sheet after a request. And even at the end of the day, as the starters go back and add those names on that came on during the day, those people get a full point too. And when everybody starts getting points like they're supposed to, it should start to level out the system and allow a more fair tee time allocation.
But
Right.
even,
Jim, I think
even non-golfers.
Jim, here's what I heard Clark saying is that they're putting it in the initial request with people who don't really play a lot of golf so that they can get, if they want to play at 10 o'clock, they get a 10 o'clock tee time. And then somehow, once they get the 10 o'clock tee time in their hand, all the names change to other people. That's what I heard, Clark.
That is true, and that is happening. So the people that didn't play get points, and the people that end up playing will get points, and it works out because it forces everybody that ends up playing to get points. And before we had a starter, those people that weren't on the request were never putting their name on the tee sheet, and they were playing golf and they weren't getting points, and it was not creating a fair situation.
Okay. Anyhow, there's an issue out there.
Well, Chelsea's an issue, yeah.
Yeah,
And
one issue I've not had though is when I show up, everybody says, "Okay, do y'all have the 12:10 tee time, or you don't have the 12:20?" And I've never had anybody out there arguing, saying, "I want to go in front of you." So I think most people are very civil out here about that, and so I've not seen that particular issue, but I know.
Yeah, I'm gonna have Rick. I'm gonna have to disagree with you. You need to talk to the starters because they have people jumping up and going through. The other day they had 3 different people that were all saying they had the tee time. They were 2 minutes off and they were throwing a fit. And somebody they just went around in front of them and started on hole 2. And then the marshal had to go get them off. I mean, it's more going on than just us playing golf. Those guys, a whole lot more than y'all think. I mean, that's the reason 99% of the courses you go play have a starter and have a marshal. When you go to a place somewhere and they all have a starter and a marshal.
Right.
Because it's like putting on a tournament. So,
right.
But again, the money is what the biggest issue. If they did it for free, I don't think anybody would worry about having a marshal or a starter. They'd say, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So I think there is some out there needed, but the question is,
how
where
much?
does it
That's
fit
what-
in and how do we
yeah.
pay for it? And so I think Jim had a good suggestion, Jim Adams, that, and we need to go, Brian needs to take our 2021 fiscal year budget, do his best guess projection based on what we know now, COVID, lodge, traffic, all that. What's our revenue going to be? And if he believes he needs to shift money from one thing to another, such as for golf marshals and everything, and then we give him the authority to do that. So we're not rebudgeting to change the monthly O&M dues. I think that's locked in.
Mhm.
But I think we do need to see how much things that got deferred in December or November, where those fall in January or February. And then are there other things we need to adjust for? And so Brian, is that something you can do by our next board meeting, and so we can sign off on things like the amount budgeted for?
I believe we can get very, very close. My concern on the two golf budgets, the pro and the golf course operation, in just rough discussions, gentlemen and ladies, if you take the 40 or 50 on golf course and another 32 in the delta on the pro shop, that's going to take a pretty big magic wand between the other departments. And I know Chris is on this call. He doesn't have a 4 or 5% wiggle room there that I can steal. Admin's going to be tight as hell. The variable here is going to be the lodge and food and beverage. So without further comment, I want to give some parameters on this wiggle room is going to be tight. And here we are coming after a conversation of being rather flush in cash to going back to really, really tight. And to Clark's point, the days of 6-figure excesses will be a thing in the rearview mirror very quickly.
Okay, so that would be my proposed suggestion, not only regarding the starter, but all other things out there that, whether it be chemicals for the golf course or whatever. Now that you've been on board here a few months and got a good grasp on the budget, what's your best guess we're going to need and still stay within our our budget that we get from the O&M dues? Clark.
We've given a lot of thought to that, those two items. The golf, Brian Brown's chemical budget probably needs about 60,000, 59,000, isn't that right? Per start,
Yes.
That's the number we talked about. And if we do Brown McCrory's full-fledged starter and Marshall allocation, that's going to be an additional 34,000. So that we're talking about $94,000 in total, $93,000 in total. So just so y'all have those numbers in your mind.
Okay,
Thank you.
Jim Adams.
Just to make sure we're all saying the same thing, or what you're saying, Rick, is because last month, Clark showed us some potential budget changes that would be needed, and it totaled up to, and we were also talking about North Star, and so all of those things total up well over $100,000, and now we're adding another 90-something thousand dollars. What we need to do is look at what Clark just ran through a cash excess that we have, and we can do those, you spend it out of that cash excess, but we need to look at it in one big picture and understand all those items instead of doing this thing one at a time and not getting the details.
That's exactly right. That's what I'm looking for from Brian, the whole big picture. And if we need to say no to something, we're going to have to say no to something. Okay,
That's
All right.
so crazy.
Item 3, request from Golf Committee to approve Golf Genius for $2,800.
All right, this was on the agenda 2 or 3 months ago, and we debated back and forth. Now it's come time to pay because the Golf Genius is now needing their money. This starts a fiscal year. There are mixed opinions of don't think that POA should pay for this. There are opinions that they should pay for it. And there's even an opinion where we might split half and half, which are all probably all valid when you go through, because the reasons given for not being for it were valid. The reasons that you should do it are valid. And the one of splitting it in half, a compromise, is probably a valid deal going through. My recommendation in the Golf Committee was 100% recommended that because of COVID and because of the people that actually use it, and it is a pure service for the Lake Kiowa community members, from golfers to non-golfers, that they think that it should be a service paid for by the POA. And I'm making a motion that it be paid for, and if it passes, that's great. And if it doesn't, then that just didn't. So there's my motion.
Can we hear from Jim Fox, please?
Can everybody hear me? So I just tossed out.
Hang on a second. I'm sorry. I think the process you go through is you need a second to.
I got to have a second. Have
Randy's
discussion.
motion, and then we go into discussion. Okay. So do we have a second on Randy's? Okay. Steve Wunderlich has seconded the motion. Okay. Now we can go into discussion. So Jim Fox, lead us off on your motion or your idea.
Yes, I tossed out the compromise idea. I wrote it up. Did everybody get a chance to see that? I think I sent it this morning. So anyway, I come from a background where you see a lot of cost recovery that's not in the 100%. And this kind of fits that same model in government, where you say the users derive more benefits than the general community on that. And so they should pay an additional share associated with a fee. So I think that's kind of the same situation we have here. There's a social good that goes with the use of Golf Genius for the whole community, especially during COVID. I think Sally Reed sent some information and highlighted that. So that was just, again, that's just an option to do a compromise where we would prorate it by the number of members. If you use a $2 fee for each member in MGA and WGA, then you'd wind up with about $1,600 coming from them, and would leave a balance of about $1,200 for the POA to pay. So everybody pays in a share of that. So just an option.
Hey, thank you, Jim. Others that have comments. Jim Adams.
I guess I would want to hear what's the benefit to the community to have Golf Genius for something that to sign up for golf tournaments and to sign up for viewing the results of golf tournaments. I don't see the benefit to the community on whole, and even if you're just a regular golfer and you're not in the MGA and you don't play in a tournament, Golf Genius is no benefit to you. So I don't think the POA should be funding this piece of software. I also don't think it's in the budget, so it's just right back to the same discussion we had before. We keep adding things to it, and we're not looking at the big picture. So again, if it benefited everybody in the community, I suppose I'd lean towards it, but I don't see how it benefits. I'm a golfer, and my wife's a golfer. We play a lot, and I use Golf Genius at least once a month or more, but it doesn't make sense to make my neighbors that don't play golf pay for that.
All right, thank you, Jim. Others, Clark, you have a position either way, being our treasurer?
I just have one question, and maybe I'm misunderstood. I was thinking when we were talking about this before that this was an additional service on top of what we already have. But what this reads, if I look at the terms of service, this is our annual subscription. Is that not correct?
That's
That
correct.
the NGA and the WGA paid for last year, and this is what it's going to cost on an annual basis going forward. Is that not right?
That's correct.
And is this, and in looking the agreement that's included in our package, is this a May anniversary? Or is it a January anniversary?
No, that is first time we used it. They gave us a grace period last time. They even dropped the price down to 2,800 versus 33. It's a January prescription, January to January.
So this agreement is effective May 2020 through December, right? Maybe?
Well, it'll start. We've already got the prescription up to. So.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
time to pay the fiddle is what it is.
I have a question. Who pays for Chelsea? If the POA is paying for the tea time reservation system, we're already paying, the community is paying for golf services. So there's already an example out there if that's the case.
I'm assuming the POA pays for Chelsea.
Randy, did the MGA and WGA, did they bump their annual dues up to recover the cost of Golf Genius? Am I remembering that correctly?
No, it was, remember, Jen was what caused last time, the MGA.
Okay, that's okay. I knew there was something like that.
Yeah.
So, Kathy Green.
Yeah, I know. Maybe we take a step back because we've got Jen, we've got Genius, and then we've got Chelsea, right? And we have to, we built into the North Star contract, and we got that change back already, that they would add the interface for Jen, which means we're going to be moving data between our North Star database to, I guess, Jen, and I'm not sure what Jen does, so forgive my ignorance. Genesis, I don't know. I think it's standalone, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong on that.
It is.
We talked to them, Kathy, when we met, and there's an interface, but it's very light interface for both pieces of software into North Star.
Okay.
But it's a very minimal. I think it's a single sign-on for Golf Genius to North Star, but and it's only to transfer list of the tournament list back into, so that they can register and then move it into the tournament, and so they can keep score. And that's really all that is. And Jen is really more of it just passes a handicap number is all it's doing back and forth.
Genius, if I'm not mistaken, also utilizes the Jen database for its base information.
That's true.
That's correct.
Well, from a IT perspective, when you're starting to talk, any kind of API or interface or manual upload, when you get into that, you really want the POA, I think, to own and control. And I know Scott Manning, he reaches out and helps the pro shop for any IT needs. And it just makes sense, I think, maybe to be under the umbrella of the POA. And I know it's not budgeted on that side either. But from that standpoint, I can see benefit that they are kind of under that umbrella with North Star, with our website, with all the other systems we have.
That was one of Brown's deals too, that if the POA has it like Chelsea, he has complete control, where now you've got a lot of Indians and Chiefs running around with couples, MGA, WGA, trying to run the system. And it's a true behind the scenes system to get everything set up. So that was another reason he was all in favor of please, BOA pay for it.
Okay, so we can do one of two things. Oh, Samuel, you got a comment?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
It's a little quiet. Can you talk a little louder or?
Okay, yeah, I'll try to talk as loud as I can. You know, when we first talked about this, I had concerns because I felt it was just the MGA and WGA people and not everybody else around here could use it. I've kind of had a change of heart on that. You know, I got to thinking, you know, maybe Brian could fill us in as to how much do we actually spend on stocking the lake for fishermen? You know, you kind of look at the different things that we do for other organizations that what's $2,800? You know, the MGA, I think, gave to the POA a $10,000 donation here recently for equipment. So I don't know. I've kind of changed my mind on it. Just to kind of let everybody know.
All right, thank you, Sam. So we could vote on the motion from Randy as is, or I don't know if Jim Fox was proposing to amend that motion or not. That's not necessarily a proposal, you were just throwing it out. Okay, so let's just vote up or down right now, unless anybody else has any other comments. Okay, Jim, you got one more comment?
Don't we have to define where it's coming from since it's not in the budget? You have to have a line item, or you have to spend it out of excess funds. So I guess that's what we're saying.
Right. Yeah, I would propose out of the 2019 excess funds. So all in favor of that motion, say aye or raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Jerry, where are you on this?
8.
8. Okay, 8. All opposed. So looks like 1. So okay, motion passes 8-1. So, thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Okay, do y'all want to take about a 10-minute break and get back right at 6 o'clock? No lollygagging. Clark, you got something?
I need the exact number on that. Is it 2,800 exact? There's no tax, no nothing?
I see Randy shaking.
2,800.
2,800
Find
exact.
the right button to push.
And do you have an invoice, and can you send that to Crystal?
All right. Okay, let's take a break. Thank you.
Mhm. We're temporarily paused for a break.
Clark, can you hear me any better now?
Barely. I can barely hear you, Sam.
It's like your microphone is covered up or something.
How about now? I changed microphones. I thought maybe it'd be
Much better.
That's much better.
Okay, I'll just have to hold the thing up when I talk. Okay.
Crystal brought some incredible cookies. That's our break.
Crystal, I'd appreciate some if you deliver.
Well, I'll see what I can do for the next board meeting if we have it in person. But yeah, my husband told me last night he wanted some chocolate, some oatmeal chocolate chip cookies to take to work. And I said, only if I can take part of them to my office. So
I kind of like having the Zoom meetings though. I mean, I'm wondering about the people that are the audience, general audience. Are they hearing it better than even when we had the microphones at the last meeting? So,
Well, an update on that. We did get the microphones tweaked. We got them adjusted. We had the guy come out. So one of the main things that we're going to have to do is really sit down and make sure everyone understands how to use it effectively. But
right. Turn them off when we're not talking and turn them on when we are talking and get close to them, right?
Yeah, honestly, it's really about, even if you take it out and use it up near your mouth or whatever. We did name them all for the board members, so they all have a name on them now. So each one of you has an assigned one. So we can monitor that one for volume, because some of you talk louder and some of you talk quieter. So
yep, it's a good point.
Try it again next time, but yeah, I'm sure everyone hears this better.
All right, let's see. I got 6 o'clock. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Kathy's not back yet. Maybe 7. Jerry would be 8. So yeah, so everybody but Kathy. You there, Jerry?
Yes, sir. I sure am.
All right. Just waiting on Kathy then. There she is. Okay, we're back in session now. So we are on item 8E, Architectural Control Committee under Jim Adams. Number 1, discuss and take possible action on a deconstitution and dividing of lot 1484, 1485, and 1506. So Jim, take it away.
Okay. I believe inside your packet, you've got a summary of this 3-lot deconstitution and dividing of a lot. In summary, there are these 3 lots, 1484, 1485, and 1506, which are on 843 Kiowa Drive East, were constituted as 1 lot. And now the owner, William Uzzle, hope I said that name right, is requesting that the lot that contains the residence be deconstituted off from the rest of the property, but including that, they're going to take a sliver, a triangular sliver of 1485, I believe I'm saying that, and adding it to 1484, or vice versa, 1484 going to 1485. So everything's in order, even with the new lots. The new lot built is a little different. It's be an L shape around the existing residential lot, but there are the vacant land that comes out of it still will be buildable, which was one of the requirements that we have, and when we approve it, and the existing residents on the lot that will be deconstituted out is all within setbacks and meets all the requirements with septic and setbacks and that kind of thing. So I would make a motion that we approve the deconstitution of lots 1484, 1485, 1506. That will, but noting that 1485 and 1506 will remain, let me say that wrong. Sorry, 1485 and 1506 will remain constituted, and 1484 will be deconstituted out. And we are also approving that lot line adjustment.
Okay, do we have a second to Jim's motion? Okay, Kathy Gray seconds it. So, Jim, I had one question. I think I asked Rich this question sometime last month. We do have existing precedent for the kind of the L-shaped lots surrounding another one out here. I think he said yes. Is that right?
I don't know that to be a case, and I don't remember. I asked that question in the meeting that we had, but there's no rule against having the L-shaped lot. So
Okay.
That did come up in our meeting, and so there was nothing we could do to work around that. And again,
Okay.
the lot is buildable the way it is.
All right. Jim Fox?
I believe it's effectively an L-shaped lot that stretches between Comanche and Santee. So there is precedent for having frontage on two different streets.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions, comments for Jim on this motion? All in favor of approving Jim's motion, raise your hand or say aye if you're Jerry.
Ah,
Let's see. I think that's everybody. Anybody opposed? Okay, so that was approved unanimously, Jim Fox. Okay, number 2.
I don't believe, unless Brian or Michael or Scott know, we did have a decision a couple of months ago, and we heard that the owner was going to appeal it. It was put on the last board agenda. The owner did not appeal to the board or ask for a fish, or maybe they did, but they couldn't come. And now it's on here again. I'm not again, the owner, I don't see them on, so I don't think we can hear this appeal. I don't know if they've officially asked.
It's my understanding we haven't even been asked to hear it again.
Okay. So we don't need
Scott knows anything different.
Right. We don't need to act on this.
Okay, Leanne, did I hear you say maybe you'd received a PowerPoint from the owner or something on this one?
I have a PowerPoint from that Jim asked Michael to provide me in case we needed it, but
right.
Okay. We don't need it.
Okay, all right. So we will move on and assume there is no current appeal of that. Okay, thank you, Jim Adams. Communications Committee, Kathy Gray, do you have anything to bring forward to us?
We met last Monday, and the only thing that I know was a carryover and something that we need to be thinking about as we're looking at our gates, our entry gates, and hopefully we get the approval to move forward because of all the problems the gates front and east have been having. When we go to the higher speed gates, which is about a 3-second entry or exit, we're going to have the challenge having the marquees out there giving messages, because you're going to be driving at a speed that's probably, not a good thing to be driving and reading simultaneously. So the communication committee wanted to go ahead and put a little task force together and start looking at alternative locations, possibly put one by the lodge, put one by the pro shop, and certainly open to thinking through anything. Pecan Plantation, which was the place that we checked those gates out. And I'm telling you, they were coming through there at 35 miles an hour without slowing down. So I think it would be pretty dangerous to have members trying to slow down to read messages. So that's an item to come from communications.
I hadn't thought about that one. I usually don't get the the sign read as it is even with the slow gate. So, yeah.
Yep, I agree.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Kathy.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Update on the fire department's efforts to become a ESO. I think Jim Adams was
Yeah,
going to give us an update there.
I just as a liaison to the Indian Creek Volunteer Fire Department, I sit in on their meetings, and they asked me to pass on in this meeting that the next public hearing for the ESD to have an ESD vote is before the commissioners on February 8th at 10 a.m. And they would like to invite anybody, and especially any board members that would like to go speak and speak for or share your opinions, whatever that is, on the ESD. And again, so this is a vote to, it goes before the commissioners to approve an election to have an ESD. So it's not approving the ESD itself, just an election. So February 8th, 10 a.m. at the Commissioners Court, if anybody has interest.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'll put that on my calendar. Okay. Any questions for Jim about the ESD? Okay. All right. Lake Management Committee, Jim Marfus. Jim's still there, and I think you have a PowerPoint, right?
I have one thing I could ask before we get started there.
Yes.
It's actually for 8A, new member changes. I had a couple member changes to my committee. Would it be possible to jump back to 8A for 2 seconds?
Yep, yes, I'm unmuted now. So sure, who are your committee changes?
So Ken Mentor is going off the committee due to health conditions. And we're adding Bill Little, Little.
Little.
Right.
Okay, so I will make
a board to move.
Okay, I will make that motion to replace Ken with Bill Little on the Lake Management Committee. Do we have a second? So, and y'all are all real small. Sam seconded, I guess. Okay, all in favor, raise your hand or say yes if you're Jerry.
Yes.
Man, those are small hands right now. So, okay, I think that passed unanimously. So, all right, those changes were approved. Okay, thank you, Jim. So let's move on with your update there. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thanks for doing that. That gets us up to date. Okay, so for those of you that may be online, I'm Jim Marfus. I'm the committee chairman for the Lake Management Committee. I'm gonna give you an update, kind of yearly update on what we've been doing. So go to the next slide. Not sure if I'm running that. So here's the members that we have. We got a pretty full committee. Sam, Wayne, Mark, Greg, John, Cecil Heath, John, the other John, another Wayne, Bill Little, and myself. I'm the chairman. So you say, why do we have that many people? Well, we actually have 4 different programs that we're involved in. Down at the bottom, the lake silt removal, retention pond cleanouts, seawall repairs, and drainage. So next slide. So the first one, lake silt removable, what we're doing is we're building funds. So it may not look like we're doing anything, but we're building funds. And so we have about 109,000 for every half year. So based on that, we're going to need about 5 half years or 2.5 years to build enough money for the dredging program. So the planning and permits and bids will start out in like mid 2022 and work on our first dredging in 2023. That's kind of the plan where it is now. So where did we come up with that 500,000 number? And I also want to, some of the candidates were questioning that 400,000 number, that we needed to get approved every time. And I'm going to show you why we need to go with what Corky's idea was. We need we need a lot more money than 400,000. And it doesn't behoove us to go to the members every time we want to do this. So if you look at this is Quantico, which is at Comanche. It's on the east side, and Comanche and Kiowa Drive East. So it's a fairly large cove back there. The colored part is the part that would be dredged. And this was a bid from Dredge America, which is a nationwide company. They're very reputable. They've done work all over the United States and a lot of work in the Dallas area. So they know what they're talking about. So if you go to the next slide. So based on that, this was their bid in July of 2018. So I highlighted the mobilization and demob. So if you look at that, that's over 100,000 just to get the equipment here and have them take it away. Another 10 for permitting and surveys, and the dredging itself, the actual works, is about 240,000. So that totals up to close to 400,000. But what that does not include is disposal. So you have to get rid of this. You can't keep it on site. So that kind of load or that kind of yardage, we're going to have 400 loads to haul away. And last time we did it to Denton Sand and Gravel over by Sanger. So that's nearly $200,000. So the grand total on that is, close to $600,000. And the fallacy on, doing it in small chunks, say you broke this into 2 chunks, you're going to be spending 110 or 20,000 every time to mob and demob. So you're going to be wasting a lot of money for the POA. So that's why we need a big chunk of money, to spend our money wisely. So that's the point on that. So next part we're working on, the committee, is retention pond cleanouts. So what we do is we're going to rotate cleanouts of the ponds as needed. And we have Kimley Horn Engineering. They helped us out on the pilot project, and they're engaged with the Corps of Engineers and really make the permitting process go a lot smoother. So our plan this year is to do low water 2 retention pond that we did a couple of years ago. And we sent out bids, and JBM, a local contractor, bid 80. American Underwater bid 2 1/4, and Image Docs didn't return our bid. So what we told JBM to reduce the scope of it and keep it to 50,000. And the reason of this is this comes out of our lake management fund. So we want to not use it all for the pond cleanouts. We want to leave as much as we can for the actual dredging. So next slide, please. So the next thing we're involved in is seawall repairs. So we actually have a subcommittee run by Cecil Heath. The 2 that we're working on right now is Quantico boat ramp area and the Weeda Cove. There's a drainage area there. And the next one in line after that is low water 1 by the park. So if you go to the next. So this slide shows what Quantico up there, Quantico, as I said, is at the corner of Comanche and Kiowa Drive East. And the part with the arrows is, we had our committee went all around the lake looking at seawalls and what we could do and what was needed. And Quantico is probably the number one that the committee looked at. So we're getting erosion by the boat dock, which, if we let that go too far, it's going to be behind the concrete, and then the boat dock and seawall is going to be compromised. So, and if you look at the right-hand side, there's a bigger blow-up picture of, how it's eroded by there. And part of that is because it's a sandy bank and no riprap on it. So one of the, if you go to the next slide. So what we're doing there is there was actually a house that was torn down right across the street from that dock. And one of our committee members noticed that there was a big slab and they were going to have to haul away this concrete. So he talked to the owner, Anderson Demolition, and asked the guy what they were going to do with it. And he said that they were just going to haul it away, and it cost him money to haul it away to pay for that. So we said, hey, how about if you give it to us and we'll put it across the street? So he coordinated this with Public Works Director Chris, they broke it up and took it across the street, and part of it, they had a really large excavator that could do the work. This is way bigger than a little Bobcat, so they could break up the concrete, put it over there, and they installed that for free. So the line there, the savings on this is about $6,500 for materials plus install. So that's the money that the committee saved the POA on this. So one of the things we do need, though, is to finish the job, we need to put a riprap on top of it, and he bid that for $3,300, which is a real reasonable number for the riprap and putting it on there. So this is what Quantico looks like now. We have the broken up concrete. It's there's no sandy bank left. Once we put the riprap on top, it'll be a real good. We won't have to worry about erosion. So that's real good. Next. So over on Nowita Cove, which is the for those of you, it's up by the dam, that little cove up by the dam. There's an erosion place in that box that just drainage factor comes in there, and we lost dirt. So there was extra concrete that was left over from the Quantico bank that we did, and he had some. So this was number 2, and he put it over there and took his equipment over there and did that for free. So if you go to the next slide. So once again, the Anderson Demolition donated the work and the riprap time and put it on there. We saved about $2,000 in this one, plus the installation charges. So what we need here, again, we need to put some riprap and also a little concrete in there to keep the riprap there. And the bid for that was about $3,300 for the limestone and the work for that. So the next plan, we're always working in the future. The next plan is on you're looking at low water 1, looking north. There's that bank of that little park. You can see the erosion and subsidence over there. That, water flows down there pretty hard, and it's worn away the bank there. So once we get more concrete and riprap, we'll come back, and that's the plan for our next stuff. Okay. And the last part of our Lake Management Committee park is the drainage part. So there was a drainage study done in 2006 by Whaley Engineers that we paid for back when we were doing studies on everything and not getting anything done. So that what they came up with, the drainage basin is 16 miles, and there's actually 33 storm drain inlets to the lake. So there's a lot of things for us to take care of. So committee member Greg Hare went around and took photos of everything. So we have an updated photo of what the inlets look like now, and then we'll work on that. So here's the action item. I looked at the budget for the December 220, and there was money for seawalls and drainage structures, and no money has been spent. So the committee actually saved over $8,500 for materials plus installation. There's probably another $3,000 to $4,000. So, we saved well over $10,000 to $12,000 for the POA or for the membership. So what we need is approval for the final riprap to be spent out of the seawall budget. And we're looking for not more than $8,000, which is $4.5 for Quantico and $3.5 for Nowita. After we had enough materials. So that's what I'm asking for. I can't make the motion, but I need somebody there to do it. If you have any other questions, I'm here to answer.
Okay, and so I assume in the fiscal year 2021 budget, we also have money set aside for those similar things. Did you look at that number?
Yeah, that would be double the numbers that I had, because the numbers I put was for a half-year budget. So.
Right. So we would need to put that into like our January or the new spreadsheet for Brian, whatever.
Yeah, so you put it in that money.
Right.
Okay.
And the way that works is if we don't spend any money, because I just went and looked, because that's on our ARF schedule. If we don't spend any money and it's put in the schedule to use, say during that 6 months, and we don't spend it, we move that money to the next year. So whatever we didn't spend in 2020 6-month budget, it will get moved to the 2021 budget.
Okay, and from in the ARF schedule that
Yes,
that was
in the ARF
money.
schedule.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay, that's even better.
Yeah, I saw the account numbers that were on his slide, and it was like, those aren't my normal expense accounts. And so
Yep.
I grabbed my P&L and looked.
Okay, all right, Jim, did I see you raise your hand?
Yeah, and I think I know the answer to the question, but maybe for Matt or Brian and Chris, what was these two items, 16,250 and 22,407, were they budgeted for anything specific before, or was it just general seawalls and general drainage?
No, exactly what Jim has explained is exactly what they're budgeted for.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, a couple of comments. One, Jim, I applaud you for you and the committee for your work on doing that. It's obvious that there's a lot of erosion issues out there. I'm also happy to see that you're putting riprap on top of the concrete. We have some conditions, and Chris Widener's shaking his head over here up at Low Water Crossing 2, where we have concrete, and he's had to go out and cut off rebar that's been sticking out for safety issues. So I saw all the rebar, and I went down and looked at what we had at Quanah Cove, and I'm glad to see that we're putting the riprap on top of that for safety purposes. A lot of people fish off that area that I see, and I know I've been in the water there with our boat with sandals on, so glad to see that it'd be safer with the riprap on top. And one final note is, I don't think we have on the agenda taking action on this item listed. So don't know what we want to do about that.
It does say discuss and take action. I think mine says discuss and take action on.
Yeah, that's what it says. Discuss and take action on $8,000 for riprap.
My apologies. My set of minutes that I'm working off didn't have that. Sorry.
Okay, Clark.
Crystal, did you say those were ARP control numbers? Because they're not coming out of Parks and Lakes 6-month budget.
No, they're on ARF. If you go back to his presentation, he's got the account numbers, and those are ARF accounts.
Those are ARF accounts.
Yep.
Well, when Jim said that 6-month budget, kind of messed me up there because
Right. No.
ARF is not a 6-month budget.
Right. Well, we had designated things that were supposed to be replaced in the 6-month budget on ARF.
Okay.
Okay, so I will make the motion to approve the funding for the riprap as Jim Marfus has requested $8,800 in ARF funds. Do we have a second? Steve seconds that. Okay, any further discussion?
Is it 8,000 or 8,800, sir?
8,000.
Okay.
Oh, was it 8,000?
So
Okay.
to reflect that for the secretary, 8,000, not 8,800, please.
Okay, my mistake, sorry. Okay, all in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Jerry, you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Jim Fox, did you raise your hand? Okay, anybody opposed? Okay, I think motion passes unanimously there. So thank you, Jim, for all of the good work that your committee's doing. Very important stuff. And that was great to get the free concrete and labor from from Anderson. So tell them thanks as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, guys.
Okay, Lakes and Parks, Jim Fox. Not an action item, just an update on tennis court lighting.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Now we can.
thank you. Okay, so I just wanted to cover kind of quickly, we've been talking about the tennis court lighting system at the Parks and Recreation Committee. It's been going on for quite a while. I know the tennis club has expressed some interest out there in trying to update or renovate that. See if I can get the picture up there. So I think everybody's probably familiar with the tennis court. We have 4 lights out there. So in summary, the court's mostly used for tennis and pickleball. I'm sure there's some kids use it for other purposes, but we've got some user satisfaction issues. The lighting system is, as I understand it, you know, the wind blows, and Chris Widener might want to jump in on there. We have to re-aim the lights because it gets kind of dark. I know some of the pickleball people actually prefer to play on the basketball court because the lighting's better over there. So we've got these ongoing maintenance issues that are consuming our POA resources. We can buy new poles, fixtures. In fact, the fixtures we have may actually be usable. Don't know yet. The problem is we don't really know what installation costs are. I did talk a little bit with Ronnie Bohannon. I know most of you realize he has a lighting company, and one of the things that he pointed out, and the big issue is we don't know the structural integrity of the light pole piers over there. That could be a real safety issue. If we're going to actually update this lighting out here, there's some design considerations, and you have in your packet some information, and I'm not going to go through all of that, but we should probably address that as best we can through proper planning and installation. And the whole safety and liability, I think, are very important factors with a light pole and what we have out there. So we do have funding in the long range planning schedule and the CARF budget, $20,000. Again, Jim Adams might verify that, but I believe that's what we have there. And that's earmarked for parks and recreation purposes. It's not actually designated specifically for the lighting system, but we do have funding, and it's not really an unbudgeted item. Since this has been going on a while, the Parks and Recreation Committee basically said they're recommending that we consider this a high priority and try to take action on it. So I reached out, again, for those of you that don't know, I worked in Parks and Recreation and Plano for many years. We did millions of dollars worth of sports field lighting with a contractor. This particular contractor had done a lot of it. And I reached out to him to ask him some questions, and he said he would be very willing to come look at the facility. He wanted me to send him some, as a follow-up to our first phone conversation, send him some pictures of what we have, which I have not yet done. But if you look at this, you can see that that's part of their services. Is we offer design assistance with bid plans and specifications. So they could certainly help with what we need to do from a specification standpoint. Here's where some of my issue is, and kind of what I'm bringing this to the board for is I don't really want to go to this contractor a second time and say, hey, come on out, give us some specs and possibly award, and then turn around and bid this out and give it to somebody else. And he's basically provided, the design work for this without some compensation. So that is an option to provide, to hire him to come out and make certain that we're getting a good opinion on the piers and what we might have to do to upgrade this system before we move forward to an RFP or a bid process. I really just want to be clear with him in my next communication what our process is for bidding. I'm not familiar, have not gone through a process. Jim Marfus just talked about what's been done from the lake. So I mean, there's people here who are familiar with our process, but I'm not. So he may still be willing to come out. I mean, again, I knew this guy, and he may be very willing to come out and do this without any fee. But before I invite him out, I want to make certain where we stand on that. And then clearly there's going to be some support needed from the POA staff, Chris, or project management needs for this. And I just want to be sensitive to our workload issues, knowing that we've had some turnover with Mr. Augustiniak leaving here. I know he's done some project management before, so might be a little overwhelming for Michael if we jump in on this. So the questions I have for the board is, I mean, do y'all agree with this priority, or should we be deferring this project? If we defer it, then I would really like to go back to the committee members in the tennis club. I think Matt Chansey, who's the president of the tennis club, is going to come to the next Parks and Recreation meeting with some other discussion regarding tennis. And I just want to explain to them where we're at with this. And then kind of to wrap up, I just wanted to ask Brian, I guess, what process do we need to follow to develop the plans and specs so we could go out and solicit bids or on this particular project, and what capacity do we have to manage the project?
All right. Thank you very much for this very impressive presentation. If you establish a fact of an awareness that we're looking for a partner, not a vendor, to do said work, there's typically a fee associated with it, be it professional services or what have you. Might be as little as $1,500 or whatever the number is, therefore keeping it very business partnership related versus come do us a freebie. So I absolutely in alignment with your feeling of let's be upfront. If we need to pay a fee of some sort for billable hours or time, we're not right around the corner from their offices, would be my guess. So I think that's appropriate. And without having a fox, pardon the expression, fox in the henhouse, I would expect this consultant to help us draft some parameters on what we'd be looking for in terms of technical terms, much like we see from the engineering firms with the dams, on what are the common used phrases for that that we would do, but fully letting them know that this would be going out for bid, because my guess is this is not going to be a $10,000 project. There'll be some involvement here. So being upfront with them, letting him know we view him as a resource, pay him for his expertise, help us with this. And he then therefore needs to understand the fact that we are a POA. Every one of you are, volunteers and making the best interest. And many times best interest has to do with dollars and cents, but most importantly, a partnership. We're not looking for just a vendor. Okay. And I think they'd be appreciative of that approach.
I can certainly do that. Again, I guess then kind of back to the bigger question is does the board feel like we need to move forward with this?
Well, I'm biased because I'm a member of the tennis club, and I can't see when it's not bright. But if it's the Parks and Rec's #1 priority, that's what I'm interested in finding out. Is that your #1 priority with that money that's kind of allocated out there for CARF, in CARF?
If I could chime in.
Yeah, Scott.
So Jim, that good presentation on the lighting situation, and I've been a part of changing out those lights over the several years. We originally had metal halide, if some of you remember, and the of course then the lighting wasn't as good, and so we switched out to LEDs, which is what I think we have currently. I'm not sure. I've been out of public works for several years now, so I haven't been quite involved as much as I was. I do know that we did change some wiring at some point about 3 or 4 years ago, because underground varmints get into some of the wiring. So we finally put the new wiring and conduit underground. the structural integrity that you're referring to, these poles have been there for longer than I've been in Kiowa, and the reason I'm bringing this up is I have a lighting skill set with my master's in electrical in lighting controls and design. So if that helps to assist with this project as well, I'd be more than happy to give you my input. I do believe, though, because I looked a few years back again, that I think our lighting is not, the setup currently, being that we only have 4 total lights, I think we need to add at least to have a total of 6. From what I've looked at different tennis courts, I think I've seen, especially the professional courts, they have at least 3 on each side. So that might increase. We may look at that to increase the overall lighting overall. I'm not sure how many we have at the basketball court, but I do know that it is a lot brighter than I've seen. Again, we have the power to supply, whether we change the entire design layout, however we wish to proceed. So anyway, I just wanted to add that I'm very familiar with the lightings because, of course, I've had to change them myself in the past several years ago. So there you have it.
Thank you very much. And I did want to point this one slide out here that there are standards for tennis facilities. And one of the footnotes, if you look down at the bottom there, is facilities with older average player ages should be designed for higher light levels. And so rather than staying with the lowest class of lighting, we probably need to move up a little bit in terms of the standards that we use. And again, I believe this sports field lighting contractor could certainly provide some of those backgrounds, or has the resources to get that if we need to, with the number of foot candles and the things that need to happen out there. And 6 poles may be a way to accomplish some of that. There's quite a bit to the tennis court lighting when you look at where the ball goes and where the lights, if you don't have the proper fixtures out there, you need to find sports field lighting fixtures that cover a higher vertical area too than what you might have with a standard parking lot security light. So anyway.
Okay, looks like Jim Adams may have a comment.
A couple things. I did look up on our CARF spreadsheet. There's 20,000 in the 6-month budget, an additional 10,000 for parks in the 2021 12-month period. So there's the money's there, and I'm with Rick. I'm kind of biased. I play pickleball and I play tennis, and when I play at night, I'm one of those older ones, I guess, that can't see at night. So it is very difficult to play tennis or pickleball at night. I will add that the lights that are there were actually donated by individuals some number of years ago. They weren't provided by the POA. I think the POA paid to wire it, maybe wire it and put up the standards, possibly. But the lights that are up there now, they just never were adequate for tennis. They were just an attempt to get something out there. So I'm for it, and the money's there. If that's what if the Parks Committee wants, if that's what they think the top priority is.
Right. Okay. Steve Wonderlick, got a question?
Mine's more of a comment. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I lived near tennis courts and a football field at one point, and we just need to make sure we're not interfering with anybody in the houses, because we had to do a lot of work to get it to where, you couldn't sleep at night. It was that bright. So we just need to be sure that we're not interfering with people's lives.
Steve, that's a very valid comment. And again, as in the parks area where I was from, that was a very, very sensitive subject, was having and preserving the night sky has also kind of been a recent trend in that type of thing, to direct the light downward as much as possible so we don't so you can still see the stars at night. We used to joke that with some of our lights, people could save on their electric bill because they could read their newspaper without turning the lights on in their house. So.
All right. Okay. Okay. I think, just carry on.
What's all right. And the next step then, Brian, would be for Chris and I probably to get together and talk a little bit.
Sam Samuels.
Yeah, just, can you hear me any better now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. With the guardhouse, what we did, this is just information for Jim.
Now we can't hear you.
You can't hear me now?
Yeah, you have to hold it right up in front of you.
Okay, here we go. With the guardhouse, what we did, we had a similar situation where it was a resident lived out here in the design company. Anyway, we got with them and went back to the board with a cost for design, but up front we let them know that we were strictly after design because they are a contractor too for building. So a similar type of situation you may run into there, get your design, there are people out here, look at it, and then come before the board. Board gave us the money then to contract with them to do the design work for us. Just from information.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. That sounds good, Jim. So thank you for your work on that. Let's go to the next item, community manager report from Brian, starting off with lodge management.
Okay. As you're aware of, we've made a change in the leadership at the lodge, and that was done before New Year's Eve. And we began the recruiting process for that replacement virtually the next day. Currently, we've got about, I think, right at 68 resumes. And the profile that we're looking for is a working chef, someone that has the comfort level to be in front of the house, to integrate and talk with residents, and be able to have understanding of what's being done in the kitchen, hands-on with some leadership. Currently, the Tommies of the world would remain in place, but they would be under review, certainly with the new manager of that facility. Right now, the draft choices appear to be relatively strong. Now, they're not right down the street. They're Metroplex, or I got one from San Antonio that I'm going to talk to tomorrow. So I will, appraise the board of that. I did, of course, reach out to the executive committee and let them know my direction, and they gave me the necessary support to move forward with this decision. And candidly, I was almost embarrassed with how much support there was with the staff and department heads when the announcement came down, and there was, from the Sarahs of the world to even Crystal's, more than a thumbs up. So I'll leave that aside. With that, a number of things have come under review and scrutiny. And if you noticed in the detail of the December financials, there was an adjustment to inventory. And I'll be glad to speak with you, sidebar necessarily, but it was significant. And how we handle inventory taking, review, and audit. Crystal and I will be more involved with that. We had a little bit of an understanding of some issues in November, and it came completely out of the woodshed, as they say, here in December. The focus will be, as I said in my report, farm to table concept. Not everything, because the palette here is, we sell a lot of chicken wings, we sell catfish, we sell some things that aren't farm to market. So I'm not trying to put lipstick on a pig here, but fresh as possible ingredients, keeping the turn of the inventory at better than industry standards, and then addressing some sanitation issues, which I was aware of, candidly, by about November 10, and addressing those accordingly. And that's being aggressively dealt with as of next Monday. we'll be having a commercial cleaning service in the building for 10 to 12 hours next week. Also with this, there's been some conversation with some residents and members that have said, hey, why don't you just, promote Sarah? In matter of fact, it's not been a one-off. It's probably been 24. Just because someone does a particular job really, really well doesn't mean that they can do a larger job any better. And candidly, she might even have to take a little bit of a pay cut. She and I talked a little bit about it. I wasn't ever going to go in that direction, but just for the edification of the board, I wanted to let you know that I was aware that there was, you got a superstar there, just put her over here and run with it. That's really not the leadership role I'm looking for. And she, as an example, is generally very pleased that there's been a change made and we're addressing some necessary things to deal with at the lodge. I'm being a little bit vague because this still falls under some HR issues. And that's, that this is an open session. I don't want to get into the blocking and tackling of what was and wasn't done. But the change was necessary and and we're moving forward in the next direction. The next item is having to do with healthcare. And I did send in your packet a kind of a executive summary of where we stand and what's going on with the healthcare in the country. And it's very, very unique. The big four, the United, Blue Cross Blue Shields of the world, have had embarrassing excesses in profitability in 2020. 50 to 70% above what Wall Street expected it to make because of one simple thing, and that is people haven't been going to the doctor, therefore having charges, having claims. Now, will there be some pent-up activity in 21 and 22? Probably, but across the board in 20, there was either a freeze in premium rates for 1 to 2 years, and in the hospitality world, there was actually a 7 to 8% reduction. So it is my intention to do the following. In the first quarter of 21, I will invite my board and Gerald Smith to sit in on some presentations from brokers that will put our business out to market. And for those of you who I haven't shared this with, we're talking about a cost line of about $280 to right at $300,000. In the last 3 years, we've had an average increase of 9%. So we'll begin this in the first quarter. The second quarter, it would be my expectation that my board would support who we would land on as the broker of choice to get us first in line for the bidding process, which needs to be 120 days at a minimum, and ideally to be right at 6 months before you go into your next year of coverage, which for us is 1/1. So at that point, we would have some sort of number from the marketplace, probably in late September or October, which is a little late for our budget process, but will be a much firmer number. And at this juncture, the pros are telling me will be a different number than we currently have, probably lower. Probably. Don't put that in pen. The other part is our particular plan is quite rich. And I'm using insurance terms. I'm not an insurance guy. What I mean rich is, for example, your community manager pays $12.50 a week for a premium of right under $700 a month. So I pay $50 and the association pays the balance. So as a percentage, 2 or 3% is way out of the norm. It should be at a minimum 10 for what the employee pays, as much as 20%. So there's a lot of moving parts here that are rather have some nuance and have some importance. And I want the board to fully understand the direction we're going to go. And then I need my board to advise and counsel, say, this is what we want as a charter. Because I've been told by some past presidents that the philosophy is the following. Well, we'll never be the top paying entity in the workplace, but we're going to view our staff as family, and we want to, quote, take care of them. And my understanding is that's been somewhat of a philosophy that's been intertwined for a number of years, going back to before 2000. And that's fine. It's not a debate point. That's not a business philosophy. And I need to get this galvanized into a charter from what the board of directors, the current one as well as the next one, this is what we're going to handle in terms of the business process for the healthcare for the staff. My guess would be it will still be generous. It will be covering things, but it's not going to be, you know, soup to nuts just for the employees as well as for the extended family members. It's the other way. It's harsh. For example, Rich had his wife who was in the medical field, and I don't understand, but anyway, she was on it, and he has a couple kids, and that premium hit him to the tune of, you know, about $700 or $800 a month. So he was able to have the wherewithal to do it, but that's a one-off. That's a one-off. When I look at, you know, Chris of the world or other people on staff, you know, they wouldn't begin to afford that. Now, each one's a little bit different with their circumstances with their spouses, but this is my belief that this will be a priority in 21. There'll be some changes. Gerald Smith has been very helpful in guiding me through the initial part, but once I got a conversation with our existing broker, and Crystal was in on this conversation, it's unacceptable and unexplainable why a broker hasn't even spoken to the previous community manager. Didn't know who he was. So that's one more of the other initiatives that we'll be continuing to work through. And I believe we will land on something that'll be financially more advantageous for the community. One, probably a better plan for the staff, and then also have it to be explained and take away the risk. We currently have not done a very good job on getting COBRA letters out, issues with female things that of pre-existing conditions after the age of 35 that need to be documented. We've never had that. So there's some little nagging things that just need to get cleaned up. And I'm not an HR guru, but when I get 2 and 3 people telling me, oh, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, my eyes roll back. I'm like, okay, we need to clean this up. So that's the next one. And then finally, what I have here, the paper.
North Star.
I'm a little disappointed that I was unable to put this on the agenda for action. That's just personally because I got very engaged with it here in the last 30, 45 days. I look to have some documents that I will share with the board and share with James in terms of the contract for this subscription, which will be, it won't be a buyout. And that's going to be in the coming days. So we're going to have to perhaps call another meeting between now and February, because it is still my belief that we would like to have a go live date on or about the 1st of May. And they have indicated a back scheduling that's still very doable, but I've lost yet another week. And that's where we stand with that. And I wouldn't ask my board to approve, you know, a significant contract at this until you had the time to review it, time to look at it, and all the above. So that's where it stands as of 7 o'clock tonight. I'm looking at my inbox and I still don't have something from North Star. They've asked me a few questions for clarification, but I don't have an agreement that I can review and give to James and go back and forth. We have asked for a couple concessions, and I don't think that's the stumbling block, but as I said, I don't have a document that I can share with my board.
Okay, all right, thank you, Brian. Any questions for Brian regarding his manager's report? Okay, hearing none. Any additional business that anybody can think of? Okay, I don't see any there. We didn't have any questions submitted from our members, so I think we're okay there. Brian, do we have something for the executive session? I'm not aware of anything. Do we?
Hang on, am I on or off?
You're still on.
No, just point of edification. It's likely the pro shop will be closed Tuesday and Wednesday, but I don't think that's not an executive committee thing. It's just something that Brown and I are going to get worked through. Nothing to go into executive committee at this point.
Okay, very good. So if we hurry, we can get out in 3 hours. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Clark, okay, do we have a second? Steve, all right. All in favor of adjourning, say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.